Record. All right, so welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful lunch. And once again, I'm sorry that we weren't able to gather and go through the wonderful buffet line at the Civic Center for lunch. But I hope you had a nice quick break. I'm thrilled to introduce our next speaker, who I know many of you are very familiar. And again, I wish Leslie was here in person as well, the rest of you. But we're thrilled to have her here from DC and able to join us via Zoom. Leslie Jones is the Youth Financial Education at the CFPB, this Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I'm not going to read her entire bio because I'm going to let her spend her majority of her presentation sharing all of the great resources that CFP has pulled together. But really, what you need to know about her is she is the person that heads up the youth financial literacy resources at CFPB and is very active in the outreach and development efforts related to those resources. So if you ever have about youth financial education at CFPB, Leslie is your gal. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie. And
you want to go to the next slide?
Presentation. Just so you know, when you hear her say next slide, that's because I'm on that. I'm going to keep my video, my voice video up, and we will let you take it from there, Leslie.
Thank you. Hi, nice to be with you today, remotely, as we're all living this world. If you can go to the next slide, this is probably a little bit clearer picture of me than what you're getting in the video chat. But so I'm with CFPB, and I've been with CFPB. It'll be 5 years this August, which boggles my mind. I don't know where the time has gone, but I came from working in the classroom, being a curriculum specialist for a school district, helping to do teacher professional development. And so I have a lot of experience in K-12 education and a total love of K-12 education. So this project has been a joy, and I am sad to see that the bulk of it will be concluded at the end of the year, and I'll have to make up something new to do. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is the disclaimer that the Bureau likes us to give you, and basically what it says is that the presentation was not pre-recorded for your listening enjoyment. So although they have absolutely reviewed my presentation, I might say some things that are slightly different than what they had originally planned. All right, if you can go to the next slide. And my question here, no, I'm going to just go to the next slide. That one's fast. All right, so the Bureau, just to make sure that you are familiar with the Bureau, one of the things I like to point out on this slide is that the mission of the Bureau is to educate and empower consumers. And the branch of the Bureau I work for, that is our focus, educating and empowering consumers. One of the things that we've done in the last few years, for example, is for those of you that receive a credit card statement that has a link out to check your credit score and to see how well you're doing and if it's gone up or down. The Bureau felt that the more people knew their credit scores on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, that they would be able to make better financial decisions. So much of our lives, of course, are controlled by our credit scores. The whole thing of, you know, what loan rates am I going to get? Am I going to be able to get that mortgage? Am I going to be able to rent that apartment? All of those kinds of things are so often driven, get that job. Those things are so driven by our credit scores that if people knew them, they would be able to help themselves better financially. And so we worked with banks and credit unions to start offering that on this regular basis. By having access to that, we're hoping that improves your life. So that's just one of the things that the Bureau has done to empower consumers and educate them. If you can go to the next slide. Great, thank you. One of the things that the Bureau did when it was stood up, and will be 9 years old this July, one of the things that happened when the Bureau was stood up is they asked themselves the question, what is financial well-being? And my question to you is this: what messages about money did you receive as a child from adults? And I would love it if some people could pop some things in the chat. What messages about money did you receive as a child from adults? We can't afford it. Pay your bills first. Yes. Oh, it's up to you to keep it safe. It's always secretive. Yes, that is the message that I received as a child, that we don't talk to kids about money. And that was the message that I received. And I have done my best to do the opposite of that. So my kids, I think, always tell me to stop talking about it. We've got it. The message has gotten through. Do as I say, not as I do. Oh, that's a really good one. I like that one. Knowing if you're a positive or not a positive role model is very important. Well, the Bureau answered this question, and let's go ahead and look at that next slide to see what the research they did came up with. They came up with this definition of financial well-being. And what I love about this definition is it says it's not so much about how much money you make, but how you feel about what you can do with the money that you have. And it's that millionaire next door. It's that person who has a house that they haven't fixed up. They don't go on vacation. Okay, non-COVID time. They have a car that they've had for 20 years. And you're just like, how could they possibly, when they pass away, leave $1 million to the local university? And it's because they had as their, what was important to them about money was to leave a legacy. And so and so what is so important here is how you feel about your money. For some person, financial well-being might be putting their kids through college debt-free. Again, for somebody else, it might be leaving a legacy. For somebody else, it might be that vacation that you're able to take every year. That's wonderful. I keep saying these things that are things that, man, used to be part of our real lives. Okay. And obviously, COVID has had an effect on our financial well-being, I think pretty much for everybody, even those of us that have managed to mostly continue our lives and we still have income coming in and jobs or something like that. It's still that whole thing of, but what's it going to be like in 3 months, 6 months, that kind of thing. I think there's a dark cloud over all of us this way. If you can go to the next slide, please. And the 4 elements of financial well-being just distills this down a little bit differently. It says that having that control over your day-to-day finances, that capacity to absorb a financial shock, having the financial freedom to make choices to enjoy life are also important. Last year, there was a FINRA study that said that that the average American could not, 40% of Americans could not afford a $400 financial emergency. And we look at where we are today and we realize just how incredibly important that is. And that's part of the reason why the Bureau has developed this major savings initiative that they have now, just because the more people that can absorb a financial shock, the better off we all are. All right, if you can go to the next slide, please. So what happened after the Bureau looked into what adult financial well-being, they came up with these, they did some additional research and discovered these 3 building blocks of youth financial capability. That kids need to have executive functioning skills, they need to have good financial habits and norms, and they need to have financial knowledge and decision-making skills. And notice there are 3 developmental stages for that: early childhood, ages 3 to 5, middle childhood, ages 6 to 12, and then adolescence and young adulthood, ages 13 to 21. And so at executive functioning is just very simply being able to tell yourself no. It's that having self-control, being able to plan, being able to problem solve. Honestly, right now in this COVID time, executive functioning skills is basically our physical distancing tests that we're all putting ourselves through right now. And so we're all practicing our executive functioning skills right now. And then with the financial habits and norms, that is something that it's unique to everybody. What are your habits and norms for paying bills? If I asked you, do you manage your money the same way as your parents? Do you manage the money the same way as your siblings? Your answer would be probably no. That's what most people tell me. That there are differences between the way they manage their money and the way their parents did and the way that their siblings do. And that's because what's important to you might be different. Yes to parents, no to sibling, yeah. So so it all it's what we can do as educators is we can help kids figure out what their financial habits and norms are, to help them see themselves differently from their siblings, from their parents, and figure out how they want to operate. One of my children loves his car and loves to take it apart and rebuild it on a regular basis, and that's what's important to him. And my other child doesn't care about that at all. And so helping my children figure out what's important to them and talk to them in their lingo, has been an important step for me as a parent. And then finally, that financial knowledge and decision making, that's what we do often in financial education. A big thing the Bureau likes to mention is please make sure we're teaching kids to comparison shop and to look for the most recent and up-to-date information. And you might notice those check marks on this chart, and the check marks just show optimal times for introducing and teaching these building blocks. But like I said, with executive functioning, you may start at age 3 to 5, but we're all still learning it. We're all still practicing it. Executive functioning doesn't stop at the age of 6. It's just that that's a great time to start working on that. All right, if you can go to the next slide, please. So then with this one, these resources, our resources are chunked into 3 categories because we like 3s, and it's the young children age 3 to 5, school age to preteens age 6 to 12, and then teens to young adults age 13 to 21. What I'd like to know right now is, where do you currently go to get your resources for K to 8 or K to 5? If you could pop it in the chat, I'd appreciate it. You're finding stuff for next gen at for K5, or is that middle school? Okay. All right, good, thank you. For K5, I assume that's the MENT, Junior Achievement, Bonsai. Okay, all right, thank you, that's helpful. All right, so let me go to the next slide and I'll show you, I'm going to break it down and by these categories now. So one of our premier items is Money As You Grow. It's meant for parents and caregivers, but it definitely has some things that we can use as educators. And in my opinion, one of the things that we can use with as educators is help communicate to parents what they can learn and how they can learn. And these resources help parents and caregivers have money conversations with their kids. Next slide, please. This is an example of one of the activities. It's called the money sort activity. And this is a simple one pager, and you take the 4 pigs that are there, and at the youngest developmental level, you take change out of your pocket, or you take it out of a bucket, and you sort it pennies, dimes, nickels, quarters. And then extending the developmental age, then you have them counted out. We have 2 of this, we have 5 of this, we have 6 of this. And then the next developmental level, you take it and you say, well, this, we have 2 cents, we have 20 cents, we have $1, that kind of thing. And then finally, you're totaling the entire amount and having a discussion about what you might do in terms of spending, saving, sharing that money, and buying things online, all that kind of stuff. And the fact that you don't use cash then, but it's still money and things like that. So one simple activity can be used probably ages 3 to probably 8 easily. If you can go to the, actually, this is really terrible. I'm going to ask you to go 2 slides away right now. Thank you. And then this one is called the surprise money gift activity. And again, it's part of the Money As You Grow resources. And you have the child pretend they've just received a surprise gift of $100. And then they talk about what they do with the money. And one of the things I love is you're also having that discussion over is your choice of what you would do different if you had to earn the $100 or if you would borrow the $100. Obviously, if $100 is too much and you want to do 20, that is absolutely fine. That works too. And to talk to your point about whether somebody mentioned elementary, or excuse me, mentioned allowance, this is also a conversation about, do you get an allowance? Do you get gifts? Do you do special chores? How would you get money? And notice also that the activity at the bottom, we identify books that they go along well with. And so now we're going to go back and talk about books. So if you can go back 2 slides, thank you. So now the Money as You Grow is another part of our program that we absolutely love. It's for ages 3 to 10. And there are books that we've identified that have financial literacy topics that tie in with our building blocks. There are 21 books in the series. 2 of the books are Spanish language titles. One book features a Native American family. Another features a Chinese American family. And so it's got some nice variety in it that way. And many of these books can be rented through the library, downloaded as ebooks, things like that, and also purchased if you want to do that through something like Amazon or something along those lines. And one of the books that Maine identified that they liked and that they're using is Those Shoes. And if we go to the next slide, we'll talk about it just a little bit. Great. So then this one, in Those Shoes, we see what happens when Jeremy prioritizes buying a pair of black high tops. And now this story is supposed to be for 5 to 8-year-olds, but again, you can always read it younger, and some older kids can definitely read it. And the 3 key ideas in this book that have to do with financial literacy are prioritizing, figuring out what's most important to you, sharing and borrowing, and staying true to yourself. So we give you this as a heads up that these are the key ideas. So it helps you if you're writing a lesson for it or something along those lines, that you know what the key financial literacy ideas are already. Has anybody read this book? No one. Okay. So the thing that, one of the things that we love about our books is that, and if you go, I think it's 2 slides over, then we have parent guides that go with them. So you can read them in your classroom. And if you've gone on our Pueblo site, and I'll show that at the end, if you go to our Pueblo site, and you can order our parent guides to be shipped to you for no cost, and you can hand them to the kids to take home to their parents as a way to extend the learning. So the parents know what the book was that they learned, that was talked about, and the parents are told, generally speaking, what the story is. They've been given some key ideas. They're given some things to think about, and then they're given some things that they can talk to their kids about afterwards. And then they even get extension activities that they can do to extend the learning. And I'm curious, for those of you that are working in that K-5 space, do you find stories are a good or helpful way to communicate new ideas to your students? Is nobody working in the K-5 space? Is it mostly middle school? Okay, maybe it's mostly middle school. All right, so then the next slide, please. So for school-age children, this is also on the Money as You Grow site, and it is a way to help parents have money conversations with kids. There are things that happen in our lives that have money impact, and we're like, how do I talk about this with my kids? So one of them is getting a pet. I mean, you know, getting a pet is a wonderful, warm and fuzzy thing, but man, it costs money. Every time I take my dog to the vet, I know it's going to be like $200 to $300 at a minimum, and that's very painful. So being able to figure out how to have that financial conversation with your child about getting a pet. If you need some guidance, we have some tips. Same thing, buying a car, paying with a credit card. Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? If you move to a new home, that's going to have a financial impact. And then, of course, paying bills. So having these conversation starters, having some guidance can really help parents. So this is something that you can also suggest to them. All right, if you can go to the next slide. So now let's talk to them about the school age children and what else they can, sorry, I think we have a search engine if you're looking for activities for middle school students. And in our search engine, you can look for activities on a variety of things. This one is distinguishing between earned and unearned income. And the way that it's really useful is like if you're going to introduce the concept of taxes, because some income that we get, we have to pay taxes on, and some we don't. And that's why knowing what income is considered earned and what income is considered unearned is very valuable. Like people have just gotten the stimulus check, so it's a great time to have the conversation. Is that taxed? And do I have to pay taxes on that, this money that they've just popped into my account? And the answer is no, because it's unearned income and we don't have to. And so the students are asked a variety of questions that they're able to then decide on whether it's earned or unearned income. For example, an hourly wage that someone earns during the summer is an example of what type of income. Or if you're if someone loses their job and collects unemployment benefits, are those benefits are an example of what type of income. So there's very useful questions in here that you can use to get kids thinking about that tax conversation that they might be curious about. So I wanted to share this one with you, and then go to the next slide, please. And then this one's another one for middle schoolers. It's called Exploring Government Agencies. And with this one, we identified 7 government agencies. This is supposed to be just a quick 15-20-minute activity. Same thing for the previous one. And with this one, we give them scenarios like my home was terribly damaged in a hurricane, my family needs immediate help with a place to stay and needs help figuring out how to save our house, what government agency should we contact? And in this case, they look through the 5 and hopefully, because they've gotten some information on what the different agencies do, they can let you know that yes, it's FEMA that we need to contact. And then my cousin needs help figuring out how to get an auto loan, which agency has tools to help him. And then we have, hopefully they'll, from what the reading that they'll do with this activity, they'll know that they should contact the CFPB. And so these are some of the agencies, some of the questions and scenarios they're given. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is another one of our middle school ones, and this one is actually, no, yeah, hold on, let me see. Yes, this one's for middle school, and this one is called Saving for a Rainy Day. And this one, it ties into what I said before about the Bureau having read that FINRA study about people not being able to afford a $400 emergency, or at least 40% of people not being able to. And so we want to talk about the importance of having an emergency savings account, what the benefits are, and then having them think about what they would want to save for, what might be unexpected that they'd have to pay for. I'd assume one of the things that might come up is breaking a cell phone, that kind of thing, and needing to be able to pay for that if something were to happen with it. Because at middle school, they're definitely starting to get those phones, I think. If you can go to the next slide, please. There's another one called Creating a Monthly Household Budget. And this one, they review a budgeting scenario and then build a budget using a fillable PDF. And all of our PDFs are fillable, so they can just do it online and electronically if they want to. And I love this one because they're supposed to imagine that they're an adult and that they've just started a new full-time job and they're getting ready to move out on their own for the first time. They're told they're bringing home $2,000 in pay each month. And then they start selecting from housing options, make decisions about savings, decisions about what their monthly wants will be. And then they finally try to balance their budget and reflect on their choices. An example of the housing options, having a roommate or not having a roommate. Do I do a room in a house? Do I try to get an apartment? Do I want my laundry to be in the unit with me, or am I okay with going to a laundromat? They go through all sorts of thought process like that. I'm curious, how many of you had similar choices to make when you left home for the first time? Okay, still do. I can just remember the time that I told my mom, I've got this room in this guy's house. And she was just like, you did what? It'll be fine. It'll be fine. All right. Now, I've talked about what we have in terms of activities that you can find for middle school. What's going to happen in late August is we are going to release our K-5 activities. So we've taken the Jumpstart standards, and we have made, it will be about 60 activities that K-5 teachers can use in their classrooms to teach to those. And we've gotten several of them cleared already, but of course they're not published. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you one of those activities today so that you can get an idea of what it's like, but this is not for public yet. It's just, like I said, cleared. We haven't finished it yet. So if you can go to the next slide, please. All right, so this is for school-age children. And what will happen is students review why it's important to save money, and then they get reminded about the lyrics to the song, Row Your Boat, and then they sing these new lyrics, and it's save, save, save money at home or in the bank. When you meet your future goals, it's savings you should think. So they learn the song, and for the younger set, the K1s, we encourage to do the song with what is that called when you have the different groups start at different times? I'm sorry, I cannot remember. But to do that kind of thing and just focusing on that. For the older kids, we have a second activity that goes with this one. And what they do is they actually identify a different familiar tune, and then they write their own new words about savings to go with it. So it's slightly different around. Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, thank you for listening. And so we have it for the K through 5s, it can be adapted for, but it allows them to take the song with them and to have something to remind them why we're savings. And we just think this one's hopefully going to be a little bit fun and people are going to enjoy it. And so being able to the rest of the activities are like this also, but one of the things that's one of my favorites about the new set of activities is we're writing 4 stories that with some characters we're calling the money monsters, and those 4 books will be available with activities that go with them about savings and about selecting a career and just different topics, and they'll be available to be ordered on Pueblo also. So you can order a classroom set of these books to be used as you need to. And so we're hoping that people enjoy being able to have access to these books and to teach that K-5 set in an easy and better yet, cost-efficient way, because it'll all be of no cost to you at all. And so that should be good. And where you would order this stuff, if you can go to the next slide, is on Pueblo. And if you've never been here, it's like going to Costco and you're popping, you're going for that 1 or 2 things, and then there's so much in there that you're just popping a ton of stuff into your cart. And by the time you get to the register, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be really painful. But better than Costco, when you get to the registers, we're like, bye, it's free, go, and you just leave. And the stuff gets shipped to you. You don't even have to put it in your trunk. So the items get shipped and you just get them at your front door, and it works out really perfectly. And it's just a lot of great topics that not only can you use in your classrooms, but maybe you can share with some of your coworkers. One of the ones I love is Know Your Financial Advisor, and it gives you questions that you should ask yourself when you're selecting a financial advisor, and stuff on taxes and stuff on managing someone else's money for those of us that have to manage our parents' money and things like that. So please, if you haven't been here, please come, and definitely visit in the fall when we have our additional youth financial education resources here. There'll be posters that you can order, these storybooks, things like that. So hopefully you'll stop by and find some good things. And what's there right now are the parent guides that can definitely be ordered and used in your classroom to pass out to kids to take home or have at a back to school night, that kind of thing. You can go to the last slide. And of course, you can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. So any questions about any of that? Did I miss anything as we were going along? So one person I see is starting to teach middle school financial literacy now. I think my question is, are you integrating it into another subject, or will it be a standalone course? Oh, have your older kids learn a song and go into a younger classroom, have them learn it. That's brilliant. Yes. I'm hoping that that, like I said, when this group of activities comes out, that you'll be able to that there'll be enough there that there'll be something to use for multiple grade levels. The person that said that they were building, I'm just curious, are you including financial literacy into a course, or are you having a standalone course, putting in social studies class? One of the things that I didn't mention is that the Bureau's resources, the search engine that we have, one of the unique parts about it is that it's broken out by all content areas. So you can search for financial literacy activities that go along with a PE class or a world language class or a science class, that kind of thing. So we try to add it to all content areas. So that's part of what makes it really unique. So if you're a middle school teacher who's working as part of a cohort and you're all working across all subject areas, you could actually take financial literacy and have all the other teachers teaching to a certain topic also, using a different lesson that is designed for their curricular area. Like we have one on idioms that's supposed to be for middle school English middle school teachers, focusing on idioms. I'm like, okay, I'll have to teach idioms anyway. I'm a middle school English teacher, and here I can also do it with a financial literacy focus. So if you haven't checked out our search engine, please do so because you might find it useful.
Leslie, if I could just mention briefly to the group who is on the Zoom room now, you mentioned Fame's usage of the book, Those Shoes. And I know for those of you who are joining us today who are second grade teachers, you may perhaps have already heard about this, but we are getting ready next fall. We had intended to launch this spring, but COVID kind of thwarted our plans along with many of yours, but we will be launching in the fall a new family financial education program called Invest in Me Reads. And basically what we are going to be doing is distributing a free copy of Those Shoes, the book that Leslie referenced, along with the parent guide to every second grade student in the state of Maine, for which we can get information on through Maine DOE. So we are using our partners at DOE to give us data about Maine schools who serve second graders. And so we've been doing a lot of outreach and communication to schools about this program coming. Of course, now we've postponed, but we do anticipate sending close to 14,000 copies of those shoes out to Maine schools next year. This is a really phenomenal partnership between FAME and the Maine Office of Securities and CFPB. And really the whole goal is that the second graders will receive the book at school, but take the book home. We'll send a few extra copies to the teachers as well, but really taking the book home is the goal, to share with families and sharing the parent guide. And there's special content in the book that is guiding the families to visit a new webpage that we've launched, investinmereads.com. So you'll be able to take a look at that online. But it really, the whole goal is using children's literature as a way to motivate families to access some of the wonderful free resources and content that are available. And I just want to thank Leslie and the CFPB for supporting us in the effort, providing all of those parent guides and all of that content to help us with that. We're really excited about it. We hope to make it a multi-year initiative. Next year will be our pilot year, and where we go from there, we aren't certain, but the goal is really to continue the program year after year for subsequent cohorts of students, second graders, third graders, fourth graders. So we're really excited about that. But I just think that the Money on the Bookshelf program is just a phenomenal program, and what a great set of resources you've developed.
Yeah, we're one of the activities that we're developing is being written to A Bargain with Francis. So that's one of the books on the bookshelf. So we're going to have it be able to be something where your school librarian can be brought in, and the parents can be brought in, and the teacher can be teaching to the same book. So we're hoping to make it a real partnership within the school community by featuring that book. And then by having our own books, we're also hoping that it'll make it easy for people to be able to share, as opposed to having to go find a book. You're just downloading it for free, or like I said, ordering it from free from Pueblo. So we're trying to also make it even easier to get good materials and good stories that you can either have the kids read to themselves, or that you read to the kids by creating our own.
Most school and community libraries have a copy of each of the books that you recommend. So I love the idea of a school library pulling all of those books and having a, whether it's April as Financial Literacy Month, really highlighting all of those books that are available, ordering some parent guides. I mean, it's a really great way to engage students and families around these, lessons and themes.
Correct. And we're very excited that you're going to reach so many students at one time. It's just wonderful. You have Money Smart Week, which attempts to do it, but I think that cohesively saying our state's really going to make a focus on this and make this very important to us just sets a great example for us to share with other states and say, here's what you could do. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. I'm just checking out the chat.
I think you have a question in the chat.
Yes. So the question was about the contact for Invest in Me Reads, and I will tell you we have a multiple list of contacts that we've been communicating with via email. It includes building principals, administrative assistant, the second grade teacher, the curriculum coordinator, the librarian. There's probably somebody on the list that I'm missing, school counselor if applicable at that level. So we've really sent a pretty significant communications campaign to a variety of contacts, again, from the data sets and the lists of contacts that we get from me. So we are having to rely on that data because we don't have that contact information. So Sue, the woman that asked, feel free to send me an email at FAME or through Jumpstart, and I can see if you're on the list or who is on the list at your school, and I'm happy to connect with you. So definitely reach out to me and we can talk more about that. Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Leslie. I so appreciate you being here today. I know you really missed that puddle jumper at the airport today. You're a brave soul, but we do miss having you here in person. Hopefully we'll see you sometime next school year, and you be well, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm definitely missing the Augusta airport right now. And again, I think I'm missing any airport right now, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.